Welcome back to the Hearst Chaser podcast show. I was in court this morning. I'm wearing a suit and tie, or just a tie, I guess. I took the suit jacket off and talking about a topic that is a lot of fun when clients have desires to give to charities. So we're titling this Charitable Giving Without Regret. And maybe that's a terrible title, I think, because the regret maybe not actually happen, right? Because I guess most folks, when they pass, they're gone, so they can't really think about the regret. Maybe a surviving spouse or kids might carry that regret. But I will talk about some giving that you can do prior to dying. So we're going to talk about not just when you die, but people can have regret for some of the things they do presently. So it's taken center stage. That's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about how charitable giving can actually affect your kids too without proper planning, and a number of tips, tricks, mistakes to avoid on a great topic, on something that is intended to be so good for other people and the benefits of other people. We're going to talk about how to truly make that great and not a mistake and something that harms your family. Welcome back to another episode of the Hearst Chaser podcast show.
You're listening to the Horse Chaser broadcast show. Here's your host, Stephen McClellan.
All right. It is a very easy thing to give to charity. You often have done it probably without thinking in terms of some of the fundraisers that you've supported over the years. Walking in during the holiday season, I love the Salvation Army, the Ringing the Bells, and there's also church giving. There's just all sorts of giving that pops up, and we all have the thing about it is it's very emotional for people when it comes to giving, whether it's a small amount or a large amount. I think we all feel attached to helping other people, bettering the world. And a lot of times we're giving to even small things, plant a tree in memory of someone. So it's a very emotional thing. Oftentimes when it comes to finances, it's something that Americans do a lot of. In fact, in 2023, charitable giving totaled $557 billion. And a lot of these giving, a lot of it's planned giving, a lot of it is designed around taxes, it's around building a legacy, and we're going to talk about those things. I like to kind of start with a story because I'm always surprised. Initially, when we sit down with clients, we'll ask them kind of what their goals are, and one of those questions is charitable giving. Is that something they want to talk about? Is that something that's on their mind? And I can never tell, right? There's no asset amount. There's no upper middle class or lower middle class. Doesn't matter. I've had individuals give everything they had to charity, just because they were affected by something of that charity. And I remember one particular person who said that they felt very strong about charitable giving for a certain type of research. They said because of the research of the past, it had helped their loved one have more time on this earth. And they felt very strong about that, and they wanted to make sure that they could also help that charity and that research to carry on that legacy. And I think that's very popular. If you're a sports guy like me, the Jimmy V Foundation is very, very popular. Comes on during basketball season, and I love that story, that speech. If you've never seen the Jimmy V speech, he says, "Never give up, never give up." And giving is a way that we can help those folks carry on that passion of not giving up, helping the future generations. Many times it's because they've helped somebody else that you give to. It might not even be for yourself. It might you might feel passionate about some organization that helped out your children. That's a very, very popular gift giving area when a charity has helped kids and you want to help other kids. And in some cases, it might not be any of that. You may not have been affected by any of it, but you have heard about things or you've heard other people affected by things, and you feel called, driven to give. Whatever the reasons are, there's right ways to do it and wrong ways to do it. I'm going to talk about some of those. Now, here are some ways that people give. So before we talk about tax strategies, let me just tell you some of the ways people give. The first is probably the most common, is just a direct donation. Maybe some giving that you might give might not be for tax purposes. It might just be for the sake of giving. It might be a charity, a nonprofit. Maybe they don't have their 501c3 status, or it's tax deductible, but you simply want to give to an organization or event that's helping people. Completely understandable. There are donor-advised funds. Now, these next two are not so common. I typically don't see them in my practice area. I see them more with universities related to academics and that sort of thing. But they have donor-advised funds and charitable remainder trust. So a charitable remainder trust is where you give something of value and you receive the income, and you leave the remainder to charity. So there's some benefits in setting that up. I see that often with in academics, universities. Donor-advised funds, you immediately receive a tax deduction, you invest and distribute later. Very popular more among high net worth individuals. I see those less common. I see qualified charitable deductions as probably the most common way to give, and oftentimes it's not common, and it kind of frustrates me that more people don't know about it. So what is a qualified charitable deduction? So let me give you the scenario. Bob and Dorothy are 70 and a half, okay? And they both have IRAs of $100,000 each, or $500,000 or $1 million. It doesn't matter. When they turn 70 and a half, they say, look, we want to give some of this money to our charities. So option one is they'll take the money and they'll put it into their bank account and pay taxes on it, right? 20%, 30%. It just kind of depends on their tax bracket. But let's say it's $100. They put $80 in their bank account. And then they give that $80 check to the church or a charity. Now, here's the thing. There is a way to give more to that charity, and that is setting up a qualified charitable deduction, a distribution. And that distribution, you have to set up with the IRA, with the person that's holding it, and they send the money directly to the charity, which means this. So instead of $100 becoming $80, then paying taxes, then going to the charity, it's $100 straight from the IRA to the charity or to the church. Now, why is this a good thing? Well, if you happen to be the type of person who likes to give more to church, more to God, and less to the government, you'll love qualified charitable deductions because that's what they do. Surprisingly, few people know about them. I think the concern, is with a lot of people doing their own financial advising, right? They don't have a financial advisor. They simply are kind of doing it themselves. Well, they're not really getting this information from their financial advisor. And sometimes simply the financial advisor is just not telling them or not thinking about it. It doesn't really come up in context. So just want you to know, I think it's a great thing after 70 have to consider. Especially if you're going to give the money anyway to the charity, see if you can do the qualified charitable deduction. Again, this is for qualified money, right? The idea is if you've set up a 401k or 403b, and now you have an IRA, that's qualified money. You know when you take it out, you got to pay taxes on it. So those distributions are important. and you can avoid some taxes there. Well, a lot of people give because they simply want to leave a legacy. They want to leave a portion of their estate to charity. Now, listen, I cannot tell you what to do with your money, okay? That is one thing, I'm not there for you. I'm there. A lot of times clients will say, well, what charity should I give it to? And I say, well, I can't tell you that. I can, what is passionate to you? What have you been involved in? A lot of people will donate to the animal shelter because they have a pet and they want their pet to be taken care of or in memory of their pet. And so the local shelter is often a common recipient of someone's estate. How much? It's entirely up to you. You can't give more than you have. I don't know the exact dollar amount that you'll have at your passing, but some considerations here, some technicalities I'd consider, okay? If you said, for example, that you had a home that was worth $200,000 and $200,000 in an IRA, that's very common. I see that a lot. I see a lot of folks in my state have $400,000, half being home equity and the other half being qualified money. If you were to say, for example, that you want half to go to your kids and the other half to go to the charity, okay, you might want to write it a little bit more tax advantage, right? Because if you split the home down the middle, okay, half will go to charity like you want, and half will go to charity. Sorry, I was just getting a call from my wife. And that's fine. No complications. You sell the home, you get stepped up basis. So if you bought the home for $150,000 and it's now worth $200,000, it's $200,000. It's cash. They can do whatever they want to. The qualified money is a little different, right? Because if you split the $200,000 IRA down the middle, half goes to the charity. That charity gets it. No tax issues there. The kids, on the other end, they're going to pay taxes on that charity, on that qualified money. So it would have been better if the estate plan said, hey, listen, all things equal, if the charity would come out with more, getting the qualified money, and the kids come out more, getting the home value, do that, right? That makes sense. And so sometimes little words and drafting can make a big difference so that you're not giving the government any more than they need. So that's just kind of a trick.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hearst Chaser podcast show. Our mission is to be your first choice for last wishes. Want to dive deeper? Join us over at the Hearst Chaser Academy, where we've created 8 on-demand courses for each stage of life. From young adulthood to retirement, navigating separation or blended families, and everything in between, we help you plan for the future, no matter where you're at. Now stay with us as the ride continues on the Hearst Chaser podcast show.
You got to be careful too, because this is what you don't want. So under the Secure Act that happened in 2019, qualified money used to be able to be spread out over a kid's lifetime. Okay, that's not the case anymore. Generally, the children have to take the money out over 10 years. Okay, you can actually screw up your kid's distribution when it comes to putting a charity in there with your kid, and it can actually shorten the amount of time that they have to take the money out from 10 years down to 5. Why is that a bad thing? Well, typically it's best to stretch that money out and not take it. And what I'm saying to you is it really there's so many different factors when it comes to whether your kids need the money or don't need the money, or what their tax rate is and income. So there's a lot of sitting down with clients and walking through the finer details of that. But you certainly want to give the kids the option, if it exists, to spread out the money over 10 years. You don't want to, the estate plan set it up in a way that kids now have to take it out over 5 years, because truth is, they may want to work for 5 more years and then take more of it out years 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 when they're not working. And so this money that they receive, inherited IRA money, is just going to add to their taxable income. So it's going to be taxed at a very high bracket, which is something also to consider as you're thinking about your own money, right? If I have children who happen to be doctors and lawyers, their tax rate is very, very high. And mom and dad who aren't working, their tax rate might be very, very low. So sometimes, the rule that, you never touch the IRA, you never take it out unless you absolutely need it. Sometimes it makes sense to take it out even if you don't need it, just to recycle that money. Recycling is a term I heard from a financial advisor one time. You take the money out, you pay the taxes on it, but then you reinvest it. So you're not really spending it, you're just taking care of the taxes under your tax rate, not your kid's tax rate. So coming into kind of the home stretch here, here's some quick pointers, things to know about charities. First, watch out for fake charities. The IRS in 2023 identified 1,200 scams related to charities. Okay, that's a lot. Okay, and y'all, it is not hard for bad people to know how old people are and get a list and send it to old people. And they do that. I'm saying this very bluntly because that's what they do, and they scam people, and they have pictures on the front. It sounds like a charity. It's not. And so go with charities you know. And I say that very strongly because there are so many fake ones out there. If you've never heard of them before, it's probably not the best time to start giving to those charities, okay? Watch out for charities that have high overhead ratios. Some charities spend 70% on administrative costs. And I think you should know that. If you're going to give $100,000 to an organization, is $70,000 of that? $70,000 going towards overhead? If so, that's a lot. Make sure that if you do some of that charitable giving, make sure that you definitely talk with your CPA about last-minute gift giving. Make sure you don't make mistakes as far as missing tax year deadlines. Is very important. Watch double counting deductions. Sometimes you can get in trouble because you miscalculated something. That's very important to watch. IRS actually has a tax-exempt organization search that you can search through. In fact, there's a website called GuideStar where you can look at the 440 for universities and other charities, and you can see how much how they spend their money. Not all of them are in there, but it's good to know that is there. From my end, what I normally see is folks saying, hey, I want to leave something to my local church. If that's the case, a couple thoughts here. Try to direct how you want the leadership to spend the money, okay? It might be helpful for them to know that you wish that it be spent in domestic work or foreign mission work, or if it's a smaller church, you might not put any restriction or condition. You might just say, hey, I want this to go to the church. I know they're a small budget. This will help them out. Just some idea. I know I've talked to church leaders who have received money, and they've asked me, well, what do they want? And I said, well, they didn't really specify. They just said to the church. So that's kind of an important thing. Consider a backup. What if that church or organization closes? Okay, that's kind of a caution if you go to a smaller congregation. I remember a law school case study. There was a story where the estate plan said to give to this very, very small Baptist church. And when the testator died, the Baptist church wasn't there anymore. And so the family didn't know what to do with it, and they just decided, let's just give it to the Methodist church right across the street. Well, turns out that's not close to really what the testator wanted. So we have this legal doctrine called cypre that says, try to find some charity that is similar or close to that charity. So I think the court changed and said, okay, we're going to find a Baptist church that's in the same denomination that's, nearby. And that's what they did. So you got to think about those terms. Maybe add some language in there that I'm leaving it to this church, but whatever its successor interest is. Okay, so for example, if they change their name or something along that's taken care of. You can also, this is very true about our children's hospital locally. They like to know who might be giving to them in the future. They like to create a profile, and if you're going to leave a charity, you can talk to them about what your wishes are. And some of them say, "Hey, we'd love to honor the person before they pass." A lot of times they don't, but generally my clients often say, "Hey, we don't want any recognition. We just want to give the money when we're gone." You got to be careful. One thing that happens in my world, I do elder law planning, and you got to be careful. You can't really give money away to charities, and then if you have to go into a nursing home or something, have a situation where that charity has to give the money back. So I caution folks that may possibly plan to protect assets in the future going into a nursing home or something like that. Might be wise not to give large sums to charity. That can create some struggles and some really hard conversations getting money back. But I do think it's a wonderful thing to give to charities. How much? I'm not really certain. Had a fellow one time said, just in case I haven't done well enough, I do want to leave some to the good Lord. So, he'll at least see that I've done my last thing is to leave something. And I thought, okay, that I don't know how that all works, in the grand scheme of things. But I thought that whatever motivates you, right? A lot of folks just say, hey, look, I've helped out our kids enough. I just want to help some other folks. And it's not everybody. Not everybody gives charitable giving. But if you do, I think you should give. Don't just give with purpose. It's your last gift. So make it your greatest gift to be as clear as you can. You've worked hard. You've got to make sure that charity works hard too and carries on kind of the wish that you have for them. So wonderful thing to do.